Welcome to Lead, Grow, Live, where our goal is to help you lead your people, grow your company, and live your life. Cherie, you're back in studio with us again. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
A couple things have changed since we were in here last time. The name has changed, and you and I talk a lot about leading your people, growing your company, and living your life, and that's what we want to talk with you about today. But some other things have changed. Is one, you sold your company,
right? Since
the last time you came in. So,
right.
Being a CEO of a marketing company and a nice size marketing company, that's it's one of the reasons that we asked you to come back is because you know a lot about this. You spent how long at BBR?
27 years.
27
right.
years.
And now I've completed 28th year as consultant / employee of the group. Yeah.
That's outstanding. And also you're our senior advisor of marketing, and we're excited to get going with things like that. So I want to go back to the beginning because I still love that story of how BBR got started, why you named it BBR and all that stuff. So tell us about the early days at BBR.
Well, the early days, Kathy Pavi, Sarah Ashe, myself, and Carla Mesh, the four of us worked for an ad agency in Lafayette. I don't know, at some point during that journey, we decided that we should go out and form our own design firm. And there's a real distinction. We were a design firm at first, prior to being a marketing firm. And there's a distinction between the two. And we were graduates of UL. Advertising design was our major. So we were creatives and we created nice stuff, right? So we actually started with this little logo with 3 little paintbrushes. One was a yellow, one brown and red, and it symbolized hair color. And it was like, blondes, brunettes, redheads, we create pretty stuff. And we would make stationery for friends and family and design things like that. And when we decided to go out and create our own firm, man, we struggled with the name. And then we decided, hey, let's just call ourselves BBR Creative, which stood for blondes, brunettes, redheads. And luckily we had one of each. Sarah was a true redhead. Kathy was blonde. I was brunette. So we were designers at this ad agency, and we decided to leave and form our own business. And Carla Mesh was actually the controller there. And we recruited her to come with us because we knew we needed a business mind to get contracts done and tell us about how to build things. Right now, I'm talking to the university about a lot of things, to the College of the Arts. And we're one of the few firms that came from all artists. I mean, we were definitely creative minds that built a business that is still in existence today, which is a pretty good accomplishment, considering creative people are not really known for running businesses. So that's a long answer. Yeah, so we started 28 years ago, and obviously we morphed into and grew into a bigger firm in terms of, first we were designing things for many years, especially when there was a lot of print to be had. So logos and branding and CD covers and posters and annual reports and all those things that are printed. And then eventually we got into ad buying and public relations to get messages. Our clients would ask for it. Like, yes, can you create an ad for me to run in World Oil magazine? Can you place the ad for me? So we added on talent as we went forward. Things are so different today because you design very little print anymore. And so all your design work is more digital now. And you have to have a much higher knowledge of getting to market digitally than you did then. So it changed and it evolved. And so now we say we're a creative marketing firm, and that's what we evolved into. But Kathy, Sarah, and I, and Carla all went our own ways. So 2 of our employees who have been with BBR 10 years each, they now run the company.
Yeah. See, it's kind of fascinating, though. And so when you're talking about either developing skill sets that you didn't have at first or bringing talent in with certain skill sets, if you look back on 28 years ago to today, it's a totally different ball game. So what kind of challenges did you face
Well,
on the people side?
at the beginning, just amongst the four of us, okay, we were segmented and we were each good at something, and we stayed in our own silo for many years, which was good for the business.
Yeah.
So Carla managed the finance and the money part of the business, and Sarah managed all project management and resource allocation and that kind of thing. And she had a background as a designer, so she knew how to do that kind of work and had the aptitude for it. Kathy was a lover of the craft, without a doubt. And she was just a great designer and still is. And so she really owned that creative leadership piece. And they like to say, I talk the most. So they said, you can be an account service, meaning I would be the interface with the client. Well, I really didn't know how to be an account service person when I started. I didn't really know what it meant. I never mentored. Nobody mentored me. If I had to go back and do it over again, I would have definitely found a mentor before I decided to go in business and do that. I like to say to the younger people, it took me 7 or 8 years to learn how to really manage an account and manage a client and manage that kind of work on my own without any training.
Yeah.
So people now who come to work at BBR, we have a very robust orientation program. We know where the resources are to train you and teach you how to be an AE. And so we grew in that area over the years. But it's because, I didn't really know what I was doing at the very beginning. But I was a good designer myself, and I understood what we needed to offer to the client and how to help them through the process. So that allowed me to be learn and develop as an AE.
Yeah.
But that's just one of the stumbling blocks, right? There was probably many.
Because you're dealing with people, you know?
Right. Well, you're dealing with people and you're trying to understand, we're one of the few industries that you're bridging. You're really bringing like creative ideas to the table and taking the intangible and making it tangible.
Yeah.
And you're working with business people to do that. So it's that merge of business. It's where business and creativity kind of come together.
And you said you were working with the College of the Arts, or you're starting
right now?
Yeah.
Well, right now we're just in conversations about how to bring more. They have a motto right now that they're running that says something like, it's not a hobby, it's a career.
Okay.
And they're trying to, I think, spend more effort with creative people in the College of the Arts to help them understand how that applies to business.
That's
and how to
awesome.
have more worth for what you do. I don't know what it is about the world, but like people are constantly doing this thing. This is the thing they do. Oh, we're going to have an event to raise funds for this particular organization. Oh, maybe we can get this designer to do all of the artwork for free.
Yep.
Or maybe we can get the band to play for free. Or maybe we can get the videographer to do it for free. Why do they think that it's okay to get all these people to pay for free, but they're going to pay for a venue, and they're going to pay for food, and they're going to pay for... So the understanding that this is a marketable skill, right? And it's something that if you want the best, you have to pay for the best. That, everybody's not going to come up with the best idea using, their computer.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a rant, but that's the kind of work that the college is trying to, just impart on young creative people.
And they need to turn pro. Stephen Pressfield has a book called Turning Pro.
Okay.
Where it's a lot of artists. They live in this amateur space, but until they turn pro. And he also wrote the War of Art. And those are two really good books. But I want to get back to you, because today I look at you and you're a very astute businesswoman. You really are.
Well, thank you.
Well, you are. And at some point you were a creative.
Yes.
And then you started dealing with business owners and business people. And so do you feel like you learned from them and they learned from you? Because I'm going to tell you what. You do it.
Well,
right.
I think I had a good role model in my father. My father was an entrepreneurial person to begin with, and he was a pharmacist, but he also owned a a big store in our small hometown, and he always invested in other businesses. And I was the oldest child. And he treated me like, there was nothing I couldn't do. And he talked about business with me. And, when I think back when that was, like, because I graduated from high school in like 1981, but there were times, I wrote a blog on this a while back, and I forgot the exact date. Maybe it was in 1983 that I think President Reagan signed some sort of act that allowed women to, kind of be independent in a certain area. I don't even have the fact, right? What I'm saying, it was not that long ago in my mind that happened, right?
Yeah.
So, A, being a woman in business, B, understanding business. And I'll tell you how much I understood about business when I started. You got to have more money coming in than you have going out. That's kind of, that was like that's everything I knew in a nutshell. So yes, paying attention, being observant, trying to understand what was the motive for the person who was hiring us. What did they need to accomplish from a business perspective? And then how could we service that, understanding that they had an ultimate goal that was beyond creating a pretty thing?
Yeah.
And self-education, trying to find resources much like what you're offering with the company Growth Advisors, right? Is finding resources. I think the sooner you can find like mentors and people to tap into, we don't get through this world alone.
Yeah, correct.
We don't get through the world alone. And the sooner you find out that having help and asking for help and finding people who help guide you, the better off you'll be.
So when you were running BBR and you started off and then you sort of became the leader, right? At some point, somebody said, Cherie, why don't you take this thing and run with it? How has developing your people changed over the years?
Well, let me just say this. There were 20 years in, I was not, maybe I was the leader outwardly facing because they gave me the title or allowed me to use the CEO title because I was out in the community, but I wasn't really operating like a CEO. We were really, Kathy, Sarah, and I ran the business the longest. Carla kind of bowed out earlier.
Okay.
And we did everything sort of like a democracy. In hindsight, though, I don't think that that's the best way to run a business.
Now, when 3 people are in charge, nobody's in charge.
But we did align a whole lot.
Yeah.
And we stayed in our lanes a whole lot. And until we got out of our lanes, I think that's when trouble started, right? But we were able to come together like the C-suite and run the business.
Yeah, that's huge.
So anyway, you learn as you learn as you go. But what was the question about the people?
Really just how has it changed leading people over the years? Because, a lot of people talk about these generations, Generation X and Z and all these other things. Have you seen a remarkable change in people?
Oh, I think there's a big change. And I think, some of the changes that I've noticed with people over time, if you are born into a family and your family has owned businesses, you have an advantage because you understand what customer service means. My dad ran a drugstore and I had to work there. I started working there when I was 12, like wrapping presents. And then my dad always told me that I should set an example for the other people who worked there as far as coming in on time and leaving on time, like, paying attention to the customer and not sleeping at the register or whatever it might be. But so I had a little bit of advantage. But there are many people who don't have any good homeschooling, right? On how to talk to people, how to be polite to people, how to be engaging, how to not be on your phone constantly in a meeting, all those things. Some of those things came from the era that I was born and raised in, right? And the family I came from. And I can't underemphasize the importance of that because that's a big part of who you become is if you're fortunate enough to have a 2-parent family who even care a little bit, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So now, once on board, because I have had a lot of great employees that didn't have a lot of those kinds of things in their life. But we spend time at BBR, first of all, establishing core values as an organization. Kathy, Sarah, and I had core values of what we thought was important, like treating people with dignity and respect regardless of who they were, being a decent human being, trying to understand, not having a fear of reprisal if you come to us with an issue or problem. We were also women, and we were nurturing in terms of trying to be more understanding, but then, firm when you needed to be firm, but understanding. And so we didn't even call them core values at the beginning. We called them like basic beliefs, but we documented them.
Yeah.
And we tried to always live by them. And I'd like to think that most people who worked for us and who went on later appreciated and understood that we worked from a place of value system. And that built the culture because the behaviors built the culture that we built. And so I say that because there's an emphasis on values, then there's an emphasis on professional development of your people, caring that they advance, caring that they learn. I now say, because I understand you don't have lifers now in the world like you did, like when our parents went to work at, Martin Mills or something.
That's right.
And they stayed for 30 years. You have tours of duty. Like you're in the military. So true. And that is okay with me. You're coming for a 4-year tour of duty. I don't know. You might last longer than 4 years. You might love it. Or you might say, I'm going to get what I can from this experience and I'm going to move on. But be okay with that. But during the 4 years, I'm expecting you to give me your best and I'm going to give you my best. Yep. Right? So when I talk about foundational leadership principles, professional development is one, respect for the person is one, having core values that you have a culture that you're really focused on the culture, right? You're focused on that. And I think if you focus on those two things, and the third thing being the professional development, but also orientation within the business. Yeah. My first job, and I'm not going to say who it was with, but one of my first jobs out of college, my very first job out of college as a designer, I went to work at this place and they sat me in an office and I sat there for like 4 days with nothing to do and nobody to tell me what I was supposed to be doing.
They were not ready to hire you or orient you.
They didn't have time to orient me. So I would wander around. By day 4, I decided I'm just going to go find somebody to give me something to do, right? So I wandered around.
What was the job supposed to be?
I was a graphic designer.
Okay.
Yeah. I was a graphic designer. But they didn't have an orientation. And I still hear about people do this all the time. Mm-hmm. They hire people, put them in a job, and they give them, then they wonder why the person's not good at the job.
Yeah.
I had a terrible waitress the other day. Terrible. She's terrible. She could have upsold me like 5 times. I would have drank a mimosa had she offered one.
Yeah.
But she didn't come back and check enough, and I was on a diet thinking I was just going to have water, right? But I could have had that mimosa. Anyway,
you were wandering around.
Yeah, so I was wandering around the place. I found somebody to give me some work.
That's sad.
And then, from there, we got in a groove. And then I understood there was an underlying system somewhere and, and then found my stuff.
So the whole time you were supposed to be looking for work? Like asking people if they needed something?
No, I mean, somebody was supposed to assign me something.
No.
But there was just lack of system to support that. In addition to lack of orientation. And the other day with the waitress situation, as the owner, you can't jump the waitress. If the waitress has not been told that upselling her table is going to bring more money, put more money in her pocket, right? In addition to benefiting the business, it's benefiting her. But she needs to know that. She needs to understand the concept because she may not, even though it might sound very simple.
No, that's a great example of what Jeff says all the time of like, you need everybody on the same page to know like why they're doing what they need to be doing. Like one, it helps the business. 2, it helps you.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a disservice not only to the customer, but to the server and to the company.
Exactly.
It's just shocking.
So the fourth thing about that though, so I guess I don't have this written down, but when I think about it, it's core values. Then it's professional development. Then it's good orientation, which also couples with solid job descriptions and knowing what you're hiring a person to do.
Yeah.
But the fourth, in my mind, my leadership style is telling the why. And I talk way too much probably, and I'm sure people at the office would say, oh, she can talk a lot. But I feel compelled to even tell the intern why. The reason why I'm asking you to create this database spreadsheet is because we're going to use it to do X. Because if I understand why, I am more inclined to do a good job because I'm understanding what the end result's going to be. If you just hand me something and you don't tell me the why behind it, I don't even know the importance. And that's just a personal thing for me. I'm like, I want to know why. And then I feel like I can give you my all.
Yeah. Which kind of leads into where I want to head is I want to talk about the success that you've had in growing BBR, because again, it started out as a design firm with 4 ladies who were creative and ended up would you call it a mid-size marketing firm? In little old Lafayette, Louisiana, it was definitely not, it was a regional firm. It is. And so how does that happen?
It's one of the fun things about this time of my life, and especially since I did sell the business to 2 employees, and I was just the last man standing, by the way. I mean, Kathy, Carla left first, then Kathy left next, then Sarah left. And I ended up being the last man standing, and I have a lot of fortitude.
Yeah.
So, and some perseverance, which are 2 things you absolutely need in business. And so then I was able to decide that this is the next step of my journey. But now I think a beautiful thing that's happened in the last year is being able to reflect on years and being able to think about how did that happen and why? Because there's major milestones that happen and decisions that happen. Like I can tell you that hiring Emily Burke was a very big thing for the company because she was one of the first account executives that we had at BBR that had worked. We used to train everybody up ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we're going to just hire young. You have to have a college degree, but after that, we're going to just train you up the way we think it should be. But we didn't bring any outside knowledge to the table. We were just doing it based on what we thought it could be and based on these core values, which worked for me. Emily had come back home to Louisiana, as most boomerangs do, after having children, being married and having a child at the point in time. She only had 1. And came back to the state of Louisiana after working for a more reputable ad agency in Atlanta. So she's bringing knowledge back with her. She's bringing some structure. She's bringing this is how we're going to have meetings. We're going to have agendas. Oh, agendas. We didn't really follow agendas. And we're going to have status reports and meeting recaps. And we're going to do forecasting. And so she brought a lot of structure to the account service department. Monica Hebert had come on board way before that, and she's an excellent media buyer, and she brought the whole discipline of media buying to the team. A strong part of our business is media buying, and she does an excellent job of running that department. Yeah. And so bringing outside knowledge, bringing people with outside knowledge was kind of a tipping point. It's a tipping point in a new way of thinking about things. That was one major growth thing. Yeah. Another is, I gotta say, you ever listen to the podcast How I Built This with Guy Raz? Mm-hmm. He asked how much of this was luck versus how much of it was talent. And I can tell you there was one major thing that happened that was luck. And that was being offered to work on the LED account for the state of Louisiana, which is the highest of the 2 state accounts. Tourism and economic development had the biggest budgets for marketing and advertising. And we just happened to be at the right place at the right time, talking to the right people. And we were doing subcontracting work for them. And through a whole lot of commotion, we're able to get that account. And what that does for you when you're a small business, like billing $2 million a year, and you get an account that's worth $6 million a year,
Yeah.
you have to level up. You have to get people who know how to do certain things better than you. You have to bring on new services to serve the account. And so it's a forced growth kind of thing that happens. Some of it's good, some of it's not. But that was a luck piece.
Yeah. Well, you were in the right place at the right time. So the right activity creates those opportunities. And so I love what you're saying about.
But you got to be ready.
Yeah, you have to be ready.
You have to be kind of ready to accepting and say, okay,
That's
now
right.
we have a lot of foundation, so we can bring this on even if we have to go get another office building.
So proper foundation, creating expertise with the people you brought in. And that's an important one because so many companies out there divide the attentions of the key people, right? They know they can count on them, so they throw a lot of stuff at the people they can count on, so they don't allow them to be the experts they hired them for. And so you did that. And then because you had the foundation, because you were creating expertise and you were in the right place at the right time, that was a major leap up. And then everybody sees you because you're working with LED, and that probably helped with other accounts.
Right. I'm sure it did, and it exposed us to a lot more. A lot of the other thing is having structure within an organization so that everybody's clear about what their job role is, what they're doing, who's doing what. That's a real important point to establish structure.
Yeah.
I even meet other agency friends that I've met across the country who owns firms my size, because I have a network of people I'm friends with. And some of them don't have like a COO or an operations person. I think our operations person, who is Lauren Bourgeois, who ends up being one of the people who bought BBR with Emily, the two of them together, I think it's one of the most critical people you can have in an organization. Or they deliver, they're not the producer, right? So they're not producing work to get, but they are keeping that ship floating. They are able to be the one to say, oh, our benefits need to be we need to take a look at benefits. Oh, our structure's off. Oh, we need a person here. We have a capacity issue here. You know, the dishwasher broke at the house, which had happened last week. So they're kind of like the glue piece.
No doubt about it.
And I find in other agencies, sometimes what happens is you've got some key people that are really good at being account server. Next thing you know, they're doing half of the list I just said.
That's exactly right.
I remember it being a real investment for us, like saying, can we really afford a person and pay this much money to that person and not have that person bill?
Yeah, correct. They're an expense or liability rather than an income stream, right?
Right.
And that's a tough decision.
Yeah.
But can you afford not to do it?
I can tell you
what
that
you're trying to do.
And I see it. My husband's friends with somebody who has a fence company.
Yeah.
And he didn't have an operations person. He was stressed. At night, he and his wife are doing all the books. And he has when I tell you a growing legitimate business, like a great business. And I just kept saying, I wish I knew him well enough to tell him he needs an operations person.
Yeah.
And if he could just hand over operations and focus on his customers and solutions for the customers, you know, he would be in a way different position.
Yeah. This is like a mini MBA for me, you know, because everything you're saying is what we preach, you know, and what we coach. And so I really look forward to this coming out. But let's talk about you and your life and probably the good times. You've probably had rough times throughout the 28 years.
Yes, of course.
And, you know, I want to hear what you've done because you've raised some great kids. You have grandkids now. You had to have had time to continue to develop your family and then get into a position to where you could sell the company and continue consulting, you know? And so,
well, let's start with the negative.
Okay.
I have been told by my adult children that I'm not always present.
Sure.
Okay. Like I half focus. I have this internal feeling that life's short and I'm running out of time and I better do all the things that I want to do and I better get all these things done. And I always have a list of things to do and I always have too many things on my plate. And I have a terrible habit of thinking that I can accomplish more than I can in a day.
Yeah.
If you'd see a list that I come up with compared to the one my husband comes up with, he's like, there is no human way you're getting all those things done. And he's right. Okay. So even after I sold the business, I had to come to Jesus with myself about what can I honestly get accomplished and how do I give time to my family when I'm present with my family without them thinking that I have to have my laptop open and I have to do those things, because I had trained myself to get a lot of things done, but sometimes not well. Right? Because I was so from a personal standpoint, I've had to grow as a human being into, if I want more personal time for this next chapter of my life with my children and my grandchildren, I have to be present to that. Absolutely. And what does that take and what does that mean? And I've spent a lot of time working on that.
So what have you found? What does it take?
It takes that I have to be accepting that I can't get as many things as I think I can be done in a day. And that is okay.
Yeah.
And to be more realistic about what I'm supposed to be doing and to be very intentional about spending time with people I love and to be present for that activity.
Yeah.
And not doing 3 other things at the same time.
Yeah. That's a huge, the old light bulb moment,
Yeah.
And that's,
I'm still working on this, though.
Oh, yeah. And you probably will for a long time. Well,
because my nature is I'm kind of wound up to begin with, right? I feel like, I have to accomplish all this stuff before, I'm very domestic. So I love cooking. I like my house. I like booyah-yaying over there. But I can come up, I am a person who is never bored. I have never been bored a day in my life. I'm not bored.
Find something to do.
I am not bored. Yeah. If you asked me right now, I could come up with a list that would make your head spin, but I have to control myself.
Yeah, yeah. So
I kind of forgot what the question
Well,
was.
no, it's beautiful because I've heard awareness, acceptance, and intentionality, right?
Oh, thank you. I'm working toward all those things.
But that is you can write a book on that because to me, I was
self-awareness is a big thing. Though.
It's a huge thing, and
I'd love
it all
to talk
starts
about
with that,
right?
Yeah. So awareness, and then accepting. I went to my office. I went to the grocery store. I stopped by my office to pick something up, and this is so embarrassing. But I ended up getting a little cake that I said, "Look, it's Sunday. We're during Lent."
Are you talking yourself into a cheat?
Yeah, I can get a cake, and yet I forgot what I went there to go get. So to me, I'm telling you, it's about priorities.
Right.
Right. And so
it goes back to intentionality, really.
But you're intentional, but I did not go there for the cake. I went there for something, but my priority apparently was, hey, you could kind of cheat today, and so I got a little upset with myself, but it made me think. Another light bulb moment, rather than accountabilities and almost discipline, priorities, getting your priorities squared away, that could very well be the most important thing. And what you're saying is your family, even though they've reminded you of it, that's your priority and that's what you want to do. And so you're intentional.
At the beginning of every year, I host a strategic planning meeting with my husband. I tell him, we're having a strategic planning meeting. And he's like, oh, God, how many hours is it going to take? I'm like, first, I tell him it's going to be 2, and it's going to be on a Saturday, but it ends up being 4. But this year, he was so excited because now he's in a routine, and he likes our planning meeting.
You proved it works.
So what we do is we sit down together, comfortably over coffee, and we just discuss this coming year. What some expectations do you have about this year? What do I have about? My list is always longer than his because he's very satisfied doing minor things. And I'm like, we're going to go to New York. And anyway, we discuss things. And so one commitment is to see our grandkids in Atlanta quarterly.
Oh, that's great.
that has to be, it used to be every 2 months. They're getting older now. They have a lot of little activities, but at minimum. So let me tell you what that means. Like my little granddaughter dives, platform dives, and you have to have a certain facility for that. It's at Georgia Tech. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But she's got a meet coming up on March 26th. We have a big construction project at our house. I'm going no matter what. I will be there because I told him, I said, you can stay and watch the project, but this is a quarter and I'm getting it done in the quarter.
That's right.
And I'm not missing the quarter. And so I set these goals, and the big bucket items are family first, like trying to be, but I have to be intentional about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Or it will just pass me by and I won't do it. I wish I was as disciplined with my diet and exercise, but I am working on that. And some things come easier to people than other things, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I'm telling you, this is so huge. Awareness, acceptance, discipline, priorities.
You know what's a funny thing? When I first married Jimmy, he's a much calmer, slower paced person, but he gets things done.
Oh, yeah,
he just does them at a different pace than me. And I have just recently, after being married 37 years, and I told you that who you marry matters in my opinion.
No doubt about it. Yeah.
After being married 37 years, it's so funny because I'm just appreciating the quality in him that's slower than my pace and more thoughtful. Like he's going to think through which way those bricks are going to be laid in that walkway.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go like, just let him do whatever. We just need to get it done. And he's not going to do that. And I'm learning from him even at this age and this stage, because I slowed down a little bit and I thought, I have a new appreciation for him taking his time.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I love that you use the word intentional, because that's one of my favorite words. Because
absolutely,
if you actually think about what that means, it's almost what you're saying. It's like, no, don't just do it. Do it knowing what you're doing, why you're doing it.
And he thinks more about the ramifications of something. Like if we do this way, here's all the things that could happen about it. I'm kind of like let's just go and we'll figure that out after it happens.
Yeah.
But, it kind of takes two, because sometimes he does need a little.
Yeah.
It's a blend of both, though.
Yeah.
I love it. So this has been amazing. You've walked us through the beginning of BBR and your professional career. There was that little time when you just wondered at another job, but then leading people and growing your company, and now how you've gotten to this point in your life and how you're taking intentionality and
I want to, if it's okay, I just want to add one more thing, because when you're talking about what some of the consistent things that I've personally done, and Kat, I did not build this business completely alone. Let me just for sure say that, right? It was a team of people. But there's one little thing that I did, and I would encourage any business owner to do, which is I had coffee talks with every employee. I'd make a list at the beginning of the year, and usually I had about 25 employees, and it takes a lot of intentionality to do this.
Yeah.
I'd make appointments and take them to coffee offsite and just talk about them and hear what they are going like. And that's how I got to know things about people and what their home life was like and what their goals and for the future and their dreams were and what they cared about and what they wanted to be when they grew up. And that does a whole lot to create an affinity, create bonding between you as a business owner and taking the time to go and listen to a person and be genuinely interested in that. And I mean, that is almost a free thing to do.
It's free. And sadly, it's rare. And not to plug what we do, but what we do at Company Growth Advisors, it's about both professional development and personal development. And one of the things we recommend is to find someone on your team who can be a success coach and help your people find success. And I personally believe if I help you, even if your dream is to start another company and it's outside of our company, we're going to create a culture just what you did, create a culture that helps develop them personally.
Right.
And you're not going to have a hard time recruiting because you have a culture that's wants them to win.
Right.
And I love that. And there's so Cherie, you amaze me. Thank you for coming back on and agreeing to be a part of what we're doing here.
You are most welcome. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
The best.